Welcome into Bills tonight, and the Bills fall to the Jacksonville Jaguars with a low-scoring game, 9-6. They are now 5-3 on the season. I didn't expect it. You didn't expect it. None of our viewers expected for this to be how the game went from the beginning to the end. We saw the Bills last week have a tough time in the first half, and then they come out of the locker room and are able to flip the script, put 23 points on the scoreboard. That was not the case this week. Some struggles from the offensive line early on that continued throughout the game. Penalties were an issue. Steve, as you were watching this one and we were watching the game unfold and watching the clock go to 0, how do you reason with a game like this and a performance like this from the Buffalo Bills? Very uncharacteristic.
Yeah, I think what happened was the injuries to their offensive line started to show up in a big way today. They had 3 guys, Darrell Williams moved from right guard out. He's moved in. Cody Ford got back on the field after being out for the last month and a half. Feliciano on IR. Butker's back in at left guard. Their offensive line struggled, and I think it showed. The injury showed, and then Cole Beasley was in and out of the lineup, and Josh Allen went back a little bit, although it didn't look like it did when he was a rookie. I think deep down Josh said he's got to make something happen. I think he got caught with the ball in his hands a couple of times, coughed it up. Because of that, I think the fumble he had on the read, he felt like he needed to get the first down because he didn't know if the inside was going to be there. So a lot of things that I think it all boils down to the injuries up front that Buffalo could never get its rhythm offensively, and I think that's the outcome you saw.
Yeah, and in the past it seemed pretty seamless when the Buffalo Bills were down with offensive linemen. It seemed like guys could just shift in and it was no big deal. But the last 2 games, we've really seen how important those front 5 have been for the Buffalo Bills, and for Josh Allen to have a clean pocket for the running game, to have time to make moves, to watch holes open, to watch plays develop. That was not the case today.
I think it's overcoming one injury to an offensive lineman. You can do that, but 2. That's rough. And they lost Feliciano last week in the second half of the Dolphins game. He's going to be out for 3 weeks on IR. Now they're down all the way through their depth. You keep 8 offensive linemen on the roster, maybe even 9. But now you're 8 deep with 5 guys on the field and 2 guys. The 6th and 7th guys are on the field now too. So now you're 8 deep on the offensive line. And it started to show today, no question about it. And I think that the ability for the Jacksonville defense to kind of play offense and play on the other side of the ball for the game really took Buffalo out of their offense. It almost felt like Josh Allen and the offense were playing defense when we had the ball, trying to get the ball out. So we'll see.
Yeah, coming into this game, the Jacksonville Jaguars had 2 takeaways on the season. They had 3 takeaways in this game. We've got a couple of our defensive players who are on the podium right now, so we'll send it over to them.
Guys, you've been here since 2017. Safe to say that might be one of the most disappointing, surprising, whatever the word is, outcomes for you guys?
Sure.
I mean, yeah. You got to come every day ready to play. This is not your football league. We understand that. Doesn't matter what the record indicates. We say that every week. I don't think we're ready to play today.
Is there anything you guys point to with the penalties today, why that was such an issue?
Next question. I came in. No comment on that.
You said you guys didn't think you were ready to play. I mean, that's a pretty powerful thing to say for a team. Why is that?
If I knew, I would have fixed it going into it. I don't know. Don't know.
Has that happened before? I mean, is that the first time? Here in Buffalo?
Next question.
I don't know, man. I'm thinking about this game. I'm not thinking about what happened before. I just feel like we went into this game and the tough football team. We knew that. Young quarterback that had the opportunity to go out there and sling the ball around. We knew what they were gonna do, and they just beat us. They beat us.
Maybe this is the right question. Do you guys feel prepared for that?
I feel like we felt prepared. Had a good week of practice. Felt confident going into the game. They came out real aggressive. You could tell from the start their game plan coming into the game. They were going to play physical, and they just beat us.
Both you guys had the message to not panic after you lost to Pittsburgh in Week 1. You seem to bounce back well from that. So how do you do that again after today?
Same thing. This is the NFL. You got to learn how to handle the wins, handle the losses. Yeah, this one hurts, but we got to play again on Sunday. So no reason to. Yeah, this one's going to hurt, but 24-hour rule. Watch the tape tomorrow. Learn from our mistakes and get better.
you've been, Mike, very supportive when the offense doesn't have a good day. Today, you give up 9 points and you lose. Is there a conscious thing to keep that support going? Is that just the message this team always has?
We had some opportunities out there defensively to take the ball away. And I'm not sure how many takeaways they got, but, I think on our side we got one, and we left a couple opportunities out there. So, we take pride in getting those takeaways, and I feel like that could have changed the game a little more, put the offense in a better field position. Even if they did get 3 points, obviously you can see that 3 points was big in this game. So, we felt like, we could have some opportunities for the offense.
You guys had 5 personal fouls today, I think. I mean, you guys are both team captains, leaders. I mean, how is that? How does that number go over when you hear it? And what's your message to that locker room, given your status as leaders for this team?
I mean, guys are out there playing football. I don't know. There's a lot of he said this, he said this, he pushed me first, depending on how the ref sees it. Obviously we got to be able to handle our emotions in situations like that in a football game. But, sometimes they're aggressive penalties, sometimes they're not. We just got to be able to bounce back off of it. Thanks, guys.
Hi, guys.
That's Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer talking about the loss, and they looked like two guys who were pretty bummed out about the way that the game unfolded. Of course, they were prepared coming into this game. You take a whole week to prepare for who you're going to play on Sunday. Being unprepared is not a reason for why the Buffalo Bills lost. This team is full of talent, full of great players. They just got outplayed today by a Jacksonville Jaguars team who, like Jordan Poyer said, I believe, was you could see their game plan from the get-go. They were going to be physical. They were going to be mean and tough against us. And you saw that in those personal foul penalties that racked up for the Buffalo Bills. That's something that you can't do. You can't have 5 of those in a game. You can't have 12 total penalties for a loss of 118 yards when the yardage in this game was 100 yards less than what the Buffalo Bills usually average.
Yeah, it was the penalties, 8 for 112 is a reason. 3 turnovers is a reason, no question about it. All you needed, and the defense, I mean, what are you going to do? The defense held them to 9 points. Yeah. And if you told before the game you hold them to 9 points, there's just no way you'd think the Bills couldn't score 9 points. This falls on the Bills' offensive line, and the guys on that side of the ball. Josh turning it over twice or 3 times. Once 2 interceptions and a fumble lost. It was and almost a 4th fumble lost in the sack, although he was ruled down. And that's what this game comes down to. And the Bills, they look in the mirror. I mean, the penalties they committed, the turnovers they committed, and that's all it took to lose this game. If they don't have one of those turnovers and stay in field goal range and don't take a bad sack, it at least goes to overtime and you take your chances. Or 2 of them, you win the game with 2 easy field goals.
Yeah, their turnover differential going into this game plus 13. That's such a big stat to have as a team. That's a stat that means you're winning games. They did not win that margin in today's matchup. They only forced 1 takeaway to the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Jaguars had 3 on the Buffalo Bills. A lot of questions about the offensive line in this game. So center Mitch Morse is on the podium. Let's hear what he has to say.
Yeah, absolutely. You can't put this on one person. Every person's got a little bit of blame. As simple as that. So much like every loss or every game, you look at what you can fix. I can only speak for myself. There's quite a few plays I wish I'd had back, put us in an optimal position to play more efficiently. And I think, I think most of the guys would say the same thing.
Was there a sense of frustration as the game kept going and there just wasn't a rhythm offensively?
Yeah, absolutely. It was one of those things where we try to keep the best poise you can, but understand that there's a sense of urgency. And I think for us it'll be finding that balance. I think we just didn't do a good enough job. They outplayed us, and the final score shows defense did a tremendous job today. Gave us every opportunity to win this game. Just speaking from myself, need to do more.
Mitch, I know you got to watch the film, I get all that, but a lot of times with this team, no matter what the situation, in game, you guys have found answers, maybe even at halftime. there was never an answer up front today. They pressured you all day, and I don't know what was going on the sidelines, but you never had an answer. Can you explain why that was?
You know, sometimes we just got outplayed. Sometimes it was the right call against the right play we had. It was just kind of an accumulation of a lot of stuff, which made it very frustrating. But all you can do in games like this, all you can do is point inwards, look intrinsically. It's what professionals do, and it's the hardest thing to do. It's the hardest thing to do is look at yourself, and I think as an offense we have to do that, each and every one of us, and go from there. Understand that, you know, we got to figure some stuff out. Plain simple, a sense of urgency now. So we'll go from there.
When you say sense of urgency, you know, within this game, a couple of comments ago, can you take me inside that? Were you guys urgent enough in this game? Was that an issue?
Yeah, I'm like you said, you can only point to yourself as a player, as a professional, to do the best you can when your number's called. For offensive line, our protection, you know, our numbers called for protection, whether it's communication, whether it's just getting the job done, and urgency is just putting points on the board as an offense, and you know, we would kind of matriculate the ball down the field, and then find a way to shoot ourselves in the foot. So for us, it'll be doing some soul searching, as cliche as it is, and as frustrating as that is.
You used the line combination they haven't used this year with some injuries. Was communication an issue up front?
No, I wouldn't say so. I thought we did a good job communicating for the most part. When we didn't, it showed. So yeah, maybe not. You know, you'd like to be perfect, and we weren't. And on those times that we weren't, there were some unfortunate results. So
Jordan and Micah were in here earlier and used the word that they didn't feel maybe necessarily prepared for this game. That's not an exact quote, but did you guys feel as an offense that you were adequately prepared coming in?
I mean, you'd like to say so, but I guess we weren't. So for us, it'll be finding ways to maybe change up your routine, because today, unfortunately, was not it. So we'll have to reevaluate and go from there.
Josh made some tough decisions late in the game, bad decisions, you know, led to turnovers. How much do you think that the pressure and the hits early on that kind of accumulated led to some of that?
Yeah, I mean, you answered your own question there, right? I'm not trying to be, I mean, yeah, when you don't give your quarterback time early, even when the pocket's clean, you kind of feel someone breathing down your neck. It's just it's human nature. I would do the same exact thing. So, yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can't put this on one person. Every person's got a little bit of blame in this, and that's the frustrating part, and it's the beautiful part. So you can only point at yourself.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Mitch Morse explaining that you can't put the blame on just one person. I want to read off of the Bills' offensive drives, and they go field goals back-to-back to start the game, which is fine. We want to see an efficient team in the red zone, which they have struggled with during the season, but at least you're putting points on the scoreboard. So after 2 field goal drives, they go punt, punt, interception, interception, punt, fumble, turnover on downs. End of the game there. Right. You cannot do that as an offense and expect to win the game. Again, kudos to the defense for holding the Jacksonville Jaguars to just 9 points and giving the Bills a lot of opportunities to put points on the scoreboard there. And Steve, we talked about this a little bit as the game was winding down. The offensive line, of course, they can look back at this game and try and figure out how to do a better job of giving Josh Allen the protection that he needs when you don't have the usual 5 starters. But when the Jacksonville Jaguars were pressuring Josh Allen with just 4 guys, everyone was covered in the backfield. The wide receivers weren't open. You couldn't really go to anyone because there were 7 guys in coverage. They send an extra person. They blitz one. Josh Allen did not have the time with a blitzer to make throws. What were the Jacksonville Jaguars doing coverage-wise that was taking away some plays for Josh Allen?
I think a lot of times, some of the times it was the fact that the Jacksonville was getting some pressure and they got pressure quick, but they also got pressure with just 4 guys once in a while. And there was once in a while a communication issue with the Bills up front and gave a guy a chance to come in clean. If you can get pressure with just 4 guys, the 7 guys deep, if they play it with sound adjustment and sound discipline, it's hard to find a spot to throw the football. Plus, it does take a little extra time when there's 7 guys in coverage behind the 4 guys that are coming. Jacksonville did an excellent job defensively. Both these defenses played extremely well. Make no mistake about it. The Bills' defense played very well today. Jacksonville had 151 yards passing. They did, and the Bills had an interception. So it was not a bad defensive performance by Buffalo, no question about it. And the Jacksonville defense has got a lot. They can put a feather in their cap for the way they played Buffalo. But it was the pressure up front that really led to everything. The Bills really didn't run the football effectively because the offensive line couldn't get anything going there, couldn't win the line of scrimmage. And I think that's where this whole thing falls to. The Bills' offense was not in sync at any point today. It started early, and I think it was obvious too from the fact that they got the personal fouls early. Yeah. Jacksonville was willing to go out and do some and played past the envelope. They took a penalty, but then they drew a penalty as well. And I think that's one of the things they wanted to do. You saw a couple of guys, one guy on their side and one guy on our side, Zach Moss for the Bills, and one of their players, a defensive back for the Jacksonville, both had concussion. This was a physical game, and I think that played the way Jacksonville wanted it to. They wanted to hit the Buffalo Bills in the mouth and keep the pressure on, and they were able to do exactly that.
Yeah, the Buffalo Bills are averaging over 30 points a game. They only put 6 points up in this matchup. Bills quarterback Josh Allen is at the podium. We'll send it over to him.
Josh, to be honest, it was a horrible performance on offense. Can you even put into words what was going on up there today?
And credit to them, they came out, they wanted it more. We had a lot of little things add up to big things. And I put the ball in danger too often, bit us in the butt. Played like, excuse my language, but that starts with me. So I got to be better for this team. But again, those guys on defense get paid too. They had a good game plan.
Josh, the protection, it just seemed like, I don't know if it was communication breakdowns or what, but you were scrambling a lot, took some sacks. Just what could you identify as to maybe on the sidelines as to what was going wrong up front and giving you enough time to find guys?
It's part of the game. We talked about their front being pretty good. Again, it starts with me. I can do some things better to help our guys out, get rid of the ball a little quicker. This one stings, but I'll tell you that this one makes the other games feel better. Having this pit in our stomach right now puts things into perspective. It's a week-to-week league. Any given Sunday, any team can come out here and play well and beat the other team. That's just how it goes. It's life sometimes. We'll use this to our advantage. We'll be better from it.
Josh, until the fourth quarter of that one series when you started getting the ball to Diggs, for the first 3 quarters, he was reasonably invisible. What were they doing? And really Emmanuel, too, really didn't have much of a role. What were they doing specifically to take them away?
Just 2 high shells, forcing us to throw underneath. Again, I can do things different to get our guys going early on. We didn't do a good enough job of that today. So, again, like I said, we're going to learn from this and be better from it.
Josh, in the second half, the mistakes that were on, interceptions or fumbles, were you frustrated more in that second? You said this was a frustrating game, but you haven't done that, certainly this year. Was it a frustration in that second half that maybe led to some of that?
I wouldn't say so. Just, again, got to be smart with the football and every drive and a kick. Understanding how our defense was playing, not giving them a short yard, a short field, and again, I got to be better. I played today.
Is there what do you point to personally? Like when you say you played, why? What happened personally?
Just decision making. Trying to get our guys going early on, finding checkdowns early on. But again, there's a lot of just little things that added up throughout the game that kind of put us behind where we wanted to be. Stalled a couple drives. They had a couple tips that were big and on third downs, and they hats off to them. They played hard.
Josh, when you guys were 5-2, you're talking about as playoff contenders, Super Bowl contenders. They were 1-6. Was there any semblance of overlooking this opponent?
No, it's the league. It's hard to win football games, no matter who you play. We're all grown men. We all get paid to play this game. They came out, they wanted it more.
Josh, you guys always maintain sort of an even keel no matter what happens, but does a game like this make you feel like you need to reevaluate everything, or is that overreacting to one game?
No, we'll let you guys do that. We're going to come out and work hard and practice hard and turn our focus towards the Jets tomorrow.
Josh, it seems like you're taking this loss harder than some other losses in your career. Why is that?
I mean, we don't want to lose. We don't want to lose games. And I feel like I could have played better, could have helped our team and put us in better situations, and I didn't. So that's I'm frustrated with myself more so than anything. And I got to be better for this team.
Jermaine, Micah and Jordan both pointed out they thought the defense left some turnovers out on the field. They thought they could have gotten a few more. Did you see the same type of thing?
Yeah, we got our hands on a couple balls, and in particular myself early in the game, there's a couple plays, I definitely left out there. Sack on the quarterback, I believe I left out there, and we could find ways to take the ball away. Defensively, that's what we pride ourselves on. Just to help the offense out. This game is a complimentary game. And, anything that we could do on defense to help the offense out, we got to come away with it. So I feel like we definitely left some plays out there.
Josh, they've had to obviously shuffle some things up on the offensive line. I know you're not one to make excuses, but how much, whether it's communication, execution, do you feel as if that's affected the overall output and performance of the offense?
No, we got guys that come in and work hard. Coach Johnson does a great job with them. We talk throughout the week and we practice hard, and it's just one of those games. They found a way, we didn't. Again, our defense allowed 9 points with a couple short fields, so we got to be better for them.
Josh, so what do you do? The running game, it's just not working. When you hand the ball off, it's not working, and it really hasn't worked great all year. It's been very spotty. What can you do to get that turned around?
Just got to keep trusting it. Our guys are running hard. And that's about it.
Tremaine, you're team captain. Both of you guys are leaders. You had 5 personal fouls today. That's a really high number. What's the message to the rest of that locker room when you hear a number like that? Because that's hard to win games when you're taking that many personal fouls.
Yeah, I think just the message is we got to play smart. Definitely in close ball games, we can't beat ourselves. And, we can't point fingers at the refs or whatever it may be. We just got to play smart ball out there. Whatever the call is, whatever we think, in close games, we just got to play smart.
Josh, Micah said that he thought that you guys were not ready to play today. Is that something you felt also?
We put up 6 points, so that's how I felt. Thank you, guys.
The quarterback press conference is brought to you by Lombardo Funeral Home, proud sponsor of the Buffalo Bills.
Josh Allen saying he thought he could be better for his team there, saying that the defense gave them opportunities, but they came up short. And offensive line issues aside, when Josh Allen was able to break through, find an open lane, he made some really great completions to guys he found downfield. How could he have put himself in a better situation in some of those times where the offensive line was breaking down and the pocket was breaking down? We lean on a guy like Josh Allen in situations and scenarios like that. Josh Allen is an athletic quarterback who is in a category with very few other quarterbacks who can do things, who can extend plays, who can use his legs like he can. We didn't see that show up as much as I thought it would in this game, when there was not much of a pocket for him to step into and complete passes or to hand the ball off to for running backs to make plays. So since Josh Allen is putting some of this loss on himself, how could Josh Allen have been better in this one?
The turnovers are the first thing, but he didn't mince words about the way he felt like he played. You rarely hear him talk like that.
Yeah.
And That was basically it. I think if he didn't have the 3 turnovers, it's a much different football game. I think it's a win instead of a loss. I'm not saying they would have scored 30 points,
right,
but they would have had a few more opportunities. He got sacked outside of field goal range for one time that you think Tyler Bass would have made those kicks. And the interception that, right after he'd thrown the first one, he threw another one. The fumbles, because I think that fumble on the quarterback option, I think there was a time there when he said, our running game is just getting stuffed. And I'm just going to try and do this myself. He keeps it. He had a guy right there on him and ended up getting, coughing the football up. I think there's a couple of moments where Josh tried to do too much. But that is who he is when things go bad. You can tell when he feels like things are going bad because he starts to do things like that. He doesn't do it like he did when he's a rookie. It looks a little better than it did then, but the result is the same. He tries to do too much instead of relying on the guys that he has at his disposal. The turnovers are what really did it for him, and I think when he looks back at it, those are the things that'll kind of haunt him, because there was a couple of them that happened where you'd think the Bills were going to come away with points in those situations if he didn't take a bad sack or turn it over.
Yeah, that last drive where the Buffalo Bills had the ball with just a couple minutes left in the fourth quarter, it started off with just under 3 minutes, and they were able to move the ball into Jacksonville's 39-yard line, and it was a couple opportunities like that where I agree with you. Josh was trying to make something happen that couldn't happen based on how the field was looking, based on how guys were being covered. And he'll probably go back and watch the film, and when we hear from him next week, and if he's asked about this game, he will say that he was probably trying to do too much in certain situations. We've heard him talk about how he gets frustrated and how sometimes that gets weaved into how he plays. But on the other side of that coin, that's sometimes what we want to see in Josh Allen. And Brian Daboll has talked about that extensively, is, when Josh Allen gets frustrated, I'm not always going to say something to him because I want him to be frustrated. I want him to go out there and make plays. And this is the type of quarterback that we have, and we like what we have in this guy, even when he is frustrated, because sometimes when he's in that mood, he can put some really impressive plays together that get the Bills in a situation where they can score.
Yeah, that's right. He is that kind of quarterback. And it's easier, when the team's out in front and he can try and kind of freewheel, a little bit like we've seen Pat Mahomes do in his career. The Chiefs are a front-running team, and when they start laying points out on people, they just continue to roll. Josh, too much today, was caught in a time where it wasn't straight there for him. Certainly, teams have started to play a lot more two-deep safety at certain times, and the Jaguars were able to do that today, as we said before, because they were able to get pressure on Josh with 4 guys. If they can do that, keep 2 guys deep on the defense, they can keep a lid on it, and they're not threatened deep. They're not going to give up the big play, and Josh has to be more patient. And there just wasn't time to be patient today. And he started to press, and we saw the results of it. A couple of turnovers, bad sacks. And the Jaguars, I think, were playing offense on defense, and our offense with the ball in our hands was playing defense.
Yeah. What do you have to say to the people who, after this one, whether they're Bills fans or not, say, Buffalo Bills, it's not their season?
Yeah, I'm not going to jump off that bandwagon. Yeah, this was a bad loss. No question about it. It was a bad loss. But this is a team that, to win and win consistently in the NFL, you need to fire on all cylinders. They got 2 offensive linemen that are starters that are down, and that forced a shuffle of 3 different guys up front for the 2nd straight week. And now it's the 3rd straight week because Cody Ford was actually in there this week when last week they had John Feliciano in. So they had, 2 starters out last week. Now it's 3. And so their offensive line is a little bit of a mess right now. And they were shuffling to get it going. Spencer Brown's injury, we'll see how long it takes him to get back. John Feliciano is coming back no time soon. Spencer Brown, on the other hand, will help a lot. If he can come back in, slide Darrell Williams back down to right guard and put Spencer Brown back at right tackle, that'll stabilize it a lot more than they were able to get done today. But I think that showed up in a big way today. And it showed up last week, too, early on, because I think it comes down to, more so than a physical ability, it's communication and knowing how the other guys are playing. I think their offensive line really showed signs of being a little bit out of sync today. And if not physically beat, they were mentally in tough spots today. And let some guys run free that they shouldn't have.
And Cole Beasley suffered an injury to his ribs in the Miami game last week. He was questionable going into this game, ended up playing. He definitely wasn't 100%, so maybe that also had a small impact on his workload or what he was able to do or feel comfortable doing in this game. I talked about this last week. I think another piece that this Buffalo Bills team is really missing to their offense is Dawson Knox. If you're going to put two safeties deep and you leave the flats or you leave those underneath routes open, Cole Beasley is a guy who you throw to. Dawson Knox is also a guy who you throw to right there. He is a mismatch in almost every situation, every scenario. He hasn't been up for the last 2 games, so we're not sure when he's going to come back, hopefully soon, but Tommy Sweeney is not an exact replica of Dawson Knox.
No, I think you're right, and the injuries we talked about, they're starting to show, and the depth that kind of guided the Bills through, and they kind of struggled through with, Knox out and the offensive line problems last week against Miami. It got deeper today. I think Cole Beasley had to come out of the game for a couple of series because he got shaken up again with his rib injury. Zach Moss didn't finish the game with a concussion. Tre'Davious White went down with a concussion late, and Dane Jackson almost gave up the game winner that Trevor Lawrence couldn't connect on. Injuries are starting to cause real problems for the roster, and the Bills team's going to have to find a way around that and make up for the loss of these guys. We'll see how Zach Moss is at the end of today. Tre'Davious White didn't finish the game. And others. Cole Beasley had to leave the game. So all those guys, I said, in addition to John Feliciano, Spencer Brown, and all the other guys that have been injured. So there's some Taron Johnson didn't finish the game. So there's some problems with injuries right now the Bills are going to have to deal with going forward.
Yeah, the Bills need to get right and get healthy because they're not going to have another mini bye week or an extra day off or anything like that until the Thanksgiving game against the Saints, of course, on a Thursday night. Well, the head coach, Sean McDermott, is answering questions right now. Let's hear his thoughts about tonight's loss.
Sean, Mike was just out here a little while ago, said the team wasn't ready to play today. How was that possible with respect?
Well, it's a 1 week at a time league. You guys know that. We preach that, but give them the credit. They were ready to play, and we weren't.
Sean, you guys had 5 personal fouls today. Whether or not all of them were legitimate could be maybe debated, but that's a really high number. It's tough to win with that many.
Yeah.
I mean, what's your message to those guys?
Yeah, I mean, you can't beat yourself. Let's start there. Whether it's penalties, turnovers, fundamentals, and so yeah, way too many penalties, self-inflicted. Got to keep our poise. That was a crew that called taunting, I believe, more than anyone in any crew in the league, and we were aware of that, and we didn't execute.
Sean, are you concerned by the play of the offense? I know everybody had a rough day, but because offensive line in particular, a lot of problems seem to start right there today.
Yeah, well, we got to fix some things. Let's just start there. We got to fix some things. We're going to take a hard look at the film, and you got to win up front in order to play well offensively or defensively.
Sean, you always keep an even keel no matter what happens, but does a game like this offensively make you want to really dig maybe even a little deeper than you normally would? Is it any, because this type of performance?
Yeah, I mean, I have confidence in those guys, both the staff and the players. But that was a to score 6 points, and I did think we moved the ball at times, but where we had opportunities, and then the drive would stall, whether it be in the red zone early there, or with a turnover, or for some reason we stalled out, and so we got to go back. I got to go back and look at it and scrub it down and figure out what was going on there.
Sean, what's your take on Josh's game? Some questionable decision making there at times, and I know protection was an issue in those sorts of things.
Yeah, I mean that's the turnovers. That's what jumps off the paper at me. I thought Josh made some great throws at times. As he would tell you, we've got to be smarter with the football in certain situations, and just overall as an offense, we've got to figure some things out.
Sean, on the other side of the ball, do you feel like the defense left a few big turnovers out there on the field today? Had a chance to make some bigger plays.
Well, I thought defensively, that first I believe it was the first third down, the third down where Trey had the penalty. it gave them life, and it gave them some energy on their sideline where we were off the field, and you can't do that. I thought defensively, we did some good things. I think, 218 yards, 9 points, you feel pretty good. If you were to tell me that, hey, but at the end of the day, it wasn't enough, and we got to look back at some of the things we did defensively as well, and try and get off the field earlier in some of those series where we weren't off the field, and give the ball back to our offense.
Sean, why not take the penalty and take them out of field goal range and let them try 55 yards?
Yeah, I just felt we weren't playing great at that point, and felt like he hadn't had a lot of field goals. I'm not sure if he had any at that distance at this point in the season, but that's one I want back. Yeah, obviously with the result the way it was.
Have you ever seen kindness 3 in a row like that? It was pretty unique, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean that's I think he only had a handful of attempts on the year, and he squeaked that one that Jay's referring to over the crossbar, so give him credit. But just felt like defensively we weren't in a great rhythm right there, and we were off the field, and felt pretty good about our chances on that field goal. And but that's one could probably go either way. But obviously with the result, I'd like it back.
I recognize that there's only so much you can change in game in terms of who's dressed, but did you consider any lineup substitutions up front on the offensive line at any point?
Well, we always look at it, Jay. You know that. Some of it was where we were at this week with the injuries and everything, and we'll see. We always look at everything we can going into a game.
Hey, Sean, why punt after the false start penalty?
Where do we go to fourth and seven? I felt like we could get the ball back. I think we did get the ball back there. Is that right? Is that? Yeah. We had 3 timeouts, I believe. Still, didn't we have 3 timeouts? It felt like we were in a pretty good spot, clockwise, and like I said, we got the ball back there. So, 4th and 7. Percentage-wise, we felt like, hey, let's go try and pin them down and go play defense and win the field position battle there.
This is the second straight week that the offense especially has come out in the first half slow. Is there anything that you attribute that to?
Listen, if I knew what it was exactly, we wouldn't have done it today again, But when you go back in there, you got to look at energy level, execution, red zone. I think we, in the early drive or 2, we were in the red zone there on that one, and had the ball first and goal, I think, from the 4 or 5 yard line there, give or take, and didn't get much out of it.
Sean, it seems like the offense has looked different since Dawson Knox' injury there in Tennessee. The Miami game wasn't great. This game, is it too simple to say the offensively still trying to figure out how life is without Dawson Knox?
No, I wouldn't go there, Josh. Okay. I understand where you're coming from, but just we got to go out there. We got enough players out there to make plays, and we got to execute at a higher level and make sure we're putting them in position. That's what I'm going to go when we get on this plane. I'm going to go look at it.
Sean, in your opinion, why is there such a difficulty right now to be able to gain consistent yardage when you're handing the ball off to your backs?
Yeah, that's a huge issue right now for us, Joe. So, got to be able to run the football when it's handed off. I think we were 9 carries for 22 yards with the backs. So that's not good enough.
Josh came out here and was probably more upset than most of us have seen him after a loss at any point in his career. What do you attribute that to, and how do you make sure that his headspace remains, where you need it?
Yeah, it's a long season, right? And the guys have to realize that that season's going to ebb and flow a little bit. Today, obviously, we were down and didn't get the result we wanted, but you got to hang together, and we got to go back and fix some things and make sure we identify where those problems are, in particular on the offensive side right now, and get them fixed in a hurry.
Sean, you've rarely had this, where you've been a favorite in this kind of game and lost. Is there an overall message you'll have or do have for the team right now? Because this is something that hasn't happened since you've been.
Yeah, well, we've been fortunate that way, but to me, it goes back to preparing every week, and that's the National Football League. You got to prepare every week. They've got good players, good coaches, and they played really, really well today. And so, we preach that all the time, and that's why we've gotten the results we have to this point. Didn't get it today, so we got to go back and look at why.
Sean, this is more minor, but last play on the punt, why send 11 rather than go for?
Yeah, Yeah, just trying to make something happen with the block. So you can go one of two ways, or put the returner back and try and get something going, or go for the block. 7 seconds left. I think they reset it was 5 initially, or 4 seconds, or even down to 3, and they reset it to 7. So just trying to make something happen there at that point.
Jay asked you about the personal foul penalties, but the penalties as a whole were an issue today. How do you fix that?
Well, I'd like to believe we're a disciplined team, but it doesn't show right now. And so I got to go back and look at that as well. I mean, we practice a certain way. But for some reason it's not being reflected in the way we're beating ourselves with penalties.
I'm going to go back and look at the tape. Stephon had some success in the second half, but it seemed like a struggle to get him involved. Did they do anything to take him away, or is it just something offensively?
I mean, I didn't feel that. I didn't feel that. Like you said, we'll go back and look at it, but that's something we have to think long and hard about. All right, thanks.
Sean McDermott's press conference is brought to you by Highmark Blue Cross Blue Shield of Western New York, the official health plan of the Buffalo Bills.
Okay, the Buffalo Bills have a game against the New York Jets next week, another away game for the Buffalo Bills. And Steve, you have been in games that were losses that probably shouldn't have been losses. You've been a part of Super Bowl runs. So what is your advice? You've been there, you've done that. What is your advice to a team that is currently fighting for a chance at the Super Bowl, who just faced a loss that they shouldn't have?
Well, look at what you did in this loss and do better this week. Continue with your process. Realize you're still a good football team. You've still got everything in front of you. They got 9 games left, and still a 2-game lead in the division. So they're going to be fine that way. There's plenty of football to be played, and plenty of time to assert yourself and get yourself back on track. But you've got to play better on days when you have a game, particularly a conference game, and these division games coming up. They've got 4 division games left in the second half of the season. They're at the halfway point. Don't abandon ship. What I mean, I'm saying don't change how you're doing things just because you have a bad result on a day like today. Certainly there were plays you'd like to have back. Certainly there were things you would like to execute better. But learn what you can learn from it. But don't feel like you've got to change everything that you've done to get to this point to go forward, because you don't.
Yeah, I said at the beginning of this game, don't let the blueprint be out there for this team. Against the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers put the blueprint out there for how to beat the Chiefs. Don't let that be the case for the Buffalo Bills. The Miami Dolphins made it close against the Bills. Now the Jacksonville Jaguars have beat the Bills. They've got to get healthy up front and get back to their winning ways, because like we've talked about at length, this team is so full with so much talent from the defensive side of the football to the offensive side of the football. They are mature enough to be able to figure it out, and like you said, there's so many games left in this season for them to turn around. A tough stretch for them here, but they are good enough to work their way out of what they're facing right now. That's going to do it for us. Make sure you tune into Bills Tonight on MSG at 11:30. More breakdown, more sound, and some highlights from this one. Even though the highlights weren't the best, we got to relive it just a little bit, so I'm sorry. So make sure you stick with us tonight at 11:30. For Steve Tasker, I'm Maddy Glab. We will see you next week.